anyone who's a citizen to get involved in that public policy. So that's one of the roles we play too. We are entirely nonprofit. We get a little help from the county, including a very nice rent on this building, and we get some help from the city as well, a little more financial. They're both financial help, but we get a little more of a check, I will say, than from the city. We're grateful to both of them for that sort of help. We could not be doing what we're doing without the help we get. And we also get a lot of help from our corporate sponsors as well, and some individuals who are very generous. We do very much like to have help from our members, and although Kono services are available to anyone, if you're interested in being a member, or we just had our 105th member join, and the neighborhood again is up in Sanctuary. So we're very glad to have that. If you're not a member yet, but would like to be, I didn't mention, utilities is also a member of us, and we're very, very grateful for their help. Susan over here is a very active participant in all the things we do. So on that note, I'm very pleased to introduce Tim Holken from the county and Karen Pallas from the city. And I guess, Karen, I'll let you go first.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. How are you? Good. I see a lot of familiar faces, so some of this might be repetitive. They asked us to kind of share just real quickly within about 10 minutes and kind of an overview of the department and the organization, as well as some of the key projects that we've got going on. So I did provide everyone, you'll see a 2015 annual report, as well as a little snapshot of the department, and then our little volunteer bookmarks and such. So I'll encourage you to take a look through there. A lot of great information. The City of Colorado Springs Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Services oversee all operations as it relates to parks and operations. So any development of parks and such, any development that occurs within the private developments, such as Flying Horse and Wolf Ranch and some of the other neighborhoods. We're very engaged in that process. We also oversee all the recreational aspects throughout the community. So all the youth leagues that you see, or therapeutic recreation programs and such, very active with those organizations, and a lot of partners as well who provide services through our facilities and things. We also oversee cultural services, which is our beautiful Rockledge Ranch, working with our Garden of Gods Foundation that is our nature center for programs at the Garden of the Gods, as well as North Cheyenne Canyon and Starsmore Discovery Center, and Helen Hunt Visitor Center, which is assisted with us through our Friends of Cheyenne Canyon. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention all of those partners that help support us, and with all the different activities. We have a tremendous amount of friends groups that do a variety of things for us as an organization, and they support from what I call sweat equity on the weekends and throughout the week for different activities to fundraising for different projects and facilities throughout our system. We also oversee City Auditorium, so all of the operations and things that happen out there, Sertage Ice Center, and 2 cemeteries. So we work with both Evergreen and Fairview as enterprises within our organization, as well as 2 golf courses. So if you play golf at Patty Jewett or Valley High, those are in our operations, and I encourage you. We've got a new concessionaire out of Valley High making some great food, so come out and enjoy a round of golf and enjoy some lunch there. And then last but not least, up top, very high, our iconic mountain, Pikes Peak America's Mountain. We do have the special use permit for oversight and operations of those facilities. We have a very strong but mighty team of 172 full-time staff. That's about half what our average cities within our community have to offer in regards to people, but they do a phenomenal job out there and help support all of the operations that we've talked about. We also run at about $27 million worth of operations for all of those facilities, from regional parks, neighborhood parks, to all the programs that I mentioned, and about $37 million in total with all of our enterprises. So we're very fortunate to have such a tremendous base of volunteers. I know I see so many faces. I have to introduce Hank and Carol, both who serve on our Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and do tremendous work within the community, and we had over 158,000 hours worth of volunteerism. So you ask how you do it with half the staff that you really need. It's with those wonderful hands out in the community helping us do the work that we do. So tremendous amount of projects going on within the city as well. I want to share with you 2D, which is our trail projects, and thank you for those of you who voted in support of that. That was a Tabor reimbursement, and we were able to do 8 different segments, and we'll be finishing up by end of November with those projects. So really appreciate that support. Those are those trails that kind of fall into what we call our gaps, essentially. They're not funded through the TOPS, the Trails, Open Space, and Parks tax, and they're not funded necessarily through general fund, not enough dollars. So through this particular reimbursement, we've been able to do that. So we're excited to see those older trails get a little love out there in the community and make some connections that are desperately needed. We're also working on the Legacy Loop. How many of you heard about Legacy Loop? Very good. All right, the word's getting around. Pun intended. It's a 10K loop through downtown, and we're looking forward to that. We are working with GOCO. We did receive a $1 million grant for that particular project. And we're working on underpasses and making connections. We are in the process of securing the northern connection completely, so that is moving forward, and so we'll just have a little bit to do still in the southern piece, and so that's coming along nicely. How many have heard about the Pikes Peak Summit House complex being redone? Oh, everybody's hands up, right? Okay, good. That is probably the biggest project we're working on to date right now, in terms of overall concepts, working with all the different stakeholders. Many of you may or may not know that our organization has a special use permit, so we don't own anything up there except for down at the Crystal Reservoir in our toll gate. So everything else is federal lands, and we have the privilege and the honor of operating that. So fundraising is a big part of our operation right now. We just hired the benefactor group to bridge the gap between what we have funding and what we think we can bond, as well as what we'll be able to accomplish through the community fundraising aspect, which is about we're testing it at $30 million fundraising gap. So we're hoping it's going to be right around 25 to so, but we'd like to maybe put some dollars away too for an endowment to be able to help with changing out exhibits as you go forward. How many have actually seen the concept plan that's been produced? Very good. Great. You can tell the architects put a lot of time and energy into the design, really trying to work with the mountain and really bring it back to it's the experience that you receive when you come to the summit, and not about the building. And that's really a tough job if you know some architects, to not be about the building, because that's what they do. And so I'm really proud of the team that's been involved in that, and our construction team that's helping us really devise how to best build something at 14,115 feet. So how many of you all have built something at that height? Yeah, me neither. So that's been an interesting project in terms of learning how we're going to figure this all out. How can we build it down here at this elevation and somehow manage to make it through all those switchbacks that you can easily do in your car, but not so much with a large rig, to get the pieces and parts up there that we need to complete that project. We're also working in regards to that as far as LEED certification, and also a healthy living building challenge is what that's called, which is something new to me as well, but really an interesting concept of trying to be net zero on the energy that we expend up there. So lots of good things happening with that project. I encourage you all to get involved and stay informed, and I'm thankful that all of you raised your hand in regards to that. A lot of information coming out as we continue to work on that project and others. So with that, I think I'll turn it over to Tim. Let him.
Thank you, Carol. Good morning, everyone. I am Tim Walken, Director of Community Services for El Paso County. One of my responsibilities for the county is to oversee the county's park system, which I greatly appreciate. I've been doing that for 13 years. Just a bit of history on the county park system. We started in 1971, and the plan at that point was to do small neighborhood parks all over the county. And by 1976, the Board of County Commissioners decided that wasn't a good idea, and there was way too much drive time to drive an hour to maintain a 1-acre park and drive back again. And so what they elected to do in 1976 was create a regional park system. And so what we manage is larger parks surrounding the community, Bear Creek, Black Forest, Fox Run, Fountain Creek, those usually 200 acres and up. And what we're attempting to do is not duplicate what's already within cities and towns, but to offer larger community parks for larger events that can take place in those respective areas of the county itself. And I think it really has worked out quite nicely, and a relatively common model across the country as well for counties. And so we're continuing with that, and I get approached quite often, can you just build this neighborhood park here or there? And we usually don't do that. We focus more on the large regional parks, and I think, from our standpoint, from a budgetary standpoint, and also a service standpoint, I really think it's worked out quite nicely. In addition to that, we have a regional trail system, and our goal is to connect cities, towns, schools, commercial areas. We've got 105 miles of trails throughout the county itself, and so we come down from the north, the New Santa Fe Trail, up from the south, the Fountain Creek Regional Trail, Rock Island Trail comes in from the east, and then U-Pass Regional Trails coming in from the west. And then with that, we're trying to connect up a variety of neighborhood trails, city trails, so we have a great trail system throughout the entire county as well. And building new trail systems can be a bit of a challenge. U-Pass Regional Trail, we've had many people very supportive. We've had a few neighbors concerned, and so we work with neighborhood groups in regards to that as well, and try to minimize the impacts to them, but hopefully, they recognize the benefits as well. And I think most people would agree, once the trail has been constructed and they get a chance to use the trail, see all the benefits of the trail, most people generally agree it's a good idea to be connected to that trail system. And when we see developments come through, in most cases, the developers are quite enthused about trying to connect to the county trail system as well. And when you see developments advertised nowadays, many times they talk about open space and trails, the two things that they always advertise, and that's what people would like to see. And when we do polling throughout the community, top two, always open space and trails. And so we certainly want to focus on that as we continue the development of the county park system throughout. Another division that we have within El Paso County Parks is oversees our facilities. We have a nature center in Fountain Creek, a nature center in Bear Creek. We also manage the county fairgrounds as well. Nature centers do just a marvelous job. Their staff are great, wonderful folks, and very creative, offer 1,000 programs per year. Hopefully you've all had a chance, or your children had a chance to go to one of the nature centers. They're located in a regional park, so they get a chance to use the parks as well. But I just can't say enough about that staff. They do just a marvelous job, and I think people greatly appreciate what they do. County fairgrounds, we do much more than just offer the county fair, which is a wonderful thing. Third week of July, about 25,000 people come out to the county fair, but we offer about 200 activities at the county fairgrounds throughout the year. And I would encourage you too that if you're looking for a site that you can do just about anything at, county fairgrounds is a good place to be. The Boy Scouts were just out there last weekend, had about 3,000 people out there doing all types of activities. It's just a nice 60-acre site that allows most activities to occur. So if you're looking for some place that you want to have a unique activity, it's a little ways out, about 30 miles outside the city of Colorado Springs. It's a nice drive on Highway 24, and I think you'll enjoy being at the fairgrounds as well. We have this handout you may have at your chair as well. Just a couple of comments on the 1A projects that Karen talked about, the trail projects they did. We were fortunate in 2014 to have 1A projects as well. And what we were fortunate to have is about $2 million that were given to the county to be able to utilize as a TAPER refund, and thrilled to have 70% of our voters approve that, which was wonderful. What we elected to do was to update a variety of master plans of these respective projects, and then go out and do fundraising based on those master plans. So what you have in that first column is what the money was available from TAPER. The second column is the overall cost of the project itself. The difference between those two are regional park fees paid by developers, fundraising that we did, grants and donations. And so we took the $2 million investment that the citizens gave us and turned that into $4 million of improvements in the county park system, which was incredibly helpful for us, managing a relatively small park system. So I hope when you look at TAPER refunds down the road as well, that you'll look at it that way, thinking it's a great investment back into the community, and allows us to be able to use that really as kind of base funds to be able to pursue other funds out there as well. I think this is a good example of that, and I think there's a decent chance the county will be looking at additional one in 2018. Not sure if it'll be parks or roads or drainage or whatever the case may be, but usually we're always using those funds as kind of the foundational funds, and then hopefully being able to generate additional funds as well. So appreciate your support if you did vote for that. Certainly, as Karen mentioned as well, we have wonderful friends groups. We have lots of volunteers as well to help us manage our nature centers and work at the fairgrounds and do neighborhood cleanups. Couldn't do it without them, and I seriously mean that. Our staff is about 38 staff members, generally committed to parks overall. And so to manage an 8,000-acre park system, the facilities that I mentioned, is quite a challenge for us. But with the volunteers that we have, we're able to do a reasonably good job. You know, and I say that based on the polls and the surveys that we do. I think our citizens appreciate the efforts that we make for the resources that we have. And so we'll continue on in that vein. A few projects that we're involved in at this point in time. You see those listed at the bottom. I mentioned the UPass Regional Trail. We still have a 5-mile gap there between Manitou Springs and the Teller County line. We'd like to wrap that up in the next couple of years. We were fortunate to receive a $680,000 grant just recently for that. And that'll help move that process forward. It's probably a $2 million project, and so we've got a little ways to go, but hopefully that will be accomplished. Pineries Open Space, we did receive this property about 5 years ago through it. The development process is 1,200-acre site in the Black Forest. Unfortunately, it was in the way of the fire, and so that slowed us down a little bit, but we're back now, and we're back out to bid at this point in time. It'll be an 8-mile trail section through there, nice trailhead, wonderfully beautiful site, so hopefully you'll come out and have a chance to experience that. County Fairgrounds, we have raised a lot of money for the fairgrounds as well, so we'll be doing about $700,000 worth of improvements out of the fairgrounds, which will go a long ways for our fairgrounds, and so we're excited about that, and those hopefully will be wrapped up before the county fair in July of 2017. Rainbow Falls has been a labor of love for us for many, many years. You probably had a chance to see Rainbow Falls from time to time over the years, and it's suffered with graffiti and vandalism, and we're hoping to bring that back and convert it into an historic site, which is a wonderful, wonderful site with lots of great history. And so we're anticipating doing that. We have received a grant for about $350,000. We'll be investing that into 2017, so you'll see some nice improvements there. It's going to be a little bit unique because we're going to have operational hours for Rainbow Falls. We'll be closing the site during the times that we do not have staff or volunteer there, to break the cycle of vandalism that's occurred up there and bring it, to restore it back to its glamour days. And so we're excited about that, and hopefully that will help. And you probably won't see it back open again until the summer of 2017, but by that time I think you'll be impressed with all the changes that we've done. Final comment for me is we certainly do work very closely with the city parks as well. Our planning staffs meet, seems like they talk almost daily, in between trying to trail connections to other types of projects as well. Our park boards meet once a year. Julie, by the way, our county park board, we appreciate you coming today. So I think we have a great working relationship with city parks, and we appreciate that. And we'll look forward to additional projects as we go along. Oh, and
Go ahead.
And before I forget, I want to thank Dave, Sarah, and everybody else for hosting this today. We greatly appreciate that, and not only this, but being hosted a series of these, so thank you very much for this.
Thank you. These have been fun for us. I can say that, and Sarah can't say anything yet.
I'm still drinking my coffee.
But we've really enjoyed doing this, and it's nice to see that people are coming to it and seeming to appreciate it as well. I forgot to mention a couple things, so real quickly. The bathrooms, if you haven't been here before, there's a bathroom on the other side of that picture, which is a wonderful picture of a tree with lightning behind it, and then there's another one through that door and the second door to the left. And then also wanted to thank Prospect Farm again for their contribution of the homemade bread. Prospect Farm is an urban farm located up in Venetian Village, just north of Fillmore. So we're glad to have, and we have a couple of people here from there too, so thank you very much for that. And we get bagels from Einstein Brothers, and we're grateful for that. And we get a little financial support from Griffith's Blessing to make these things happen too, which helps us with the coffee and the orange juice and that sort of stuff. We're going to stop a little bit early today because I think both Tim and Karen have to be other places, and we'll try to stop enough, and don't hold me to this, but we'll try to stop enough before 9 that you have a chance to come and ask whatever personal question you didn't want to ask in public. On that, and I think I have covered it. So what I neglected to do before. So some questions for these guys. Robert?
So for a question for the county, when you all
choose to do some sort of trail or connection or create a trail or whatever, and you talk about a neighborhood, getting in touch with neighborhoods to address their issues, what is the notification process that you all use to, I mean, does it go before the county planning commission, or what's the process that you use to notify?
For us, normally there's a master planning process involved. It's a new trail system being constructed, so that starts the process through that. And then normally there's a series of neighborhood meetings of any neighborhoods that may be impacted by the trail, well, positively and negatively, at least in some people's views. So we will launch those. Usually there's probably at least 2 to 3 neighborhood meetings, I would guess, depending on the trail and the concerns that may have. There could be many more than that, actually. With the UPass Regional Trail, we're at 6 or 7, I would guess, neighborhood meetings. Then it'll flow through the Park Advisory Board. Will be a presentation, usually of the master plan draft at the Park Advisory Board. Once again, there's opportunity for additional discussion at that point. Neighbors can make comment. And then finally, it'll go before the Board of County Commissioners for approval of the master plan itself. Once again, opportunity for neighbors to make comment at that point. And then once the master plan's in place, then we start the process of actually building the trail itself. And then there's usually a variety of one-on-one meetings with neighbors if they're going to be impacted. Let's say the trail's going to go across their driveways, it goes down a right of way. There will usually be one-on-one discussion with neighbors at that point as well, to try to minimize any impacts that they see with that. And I should add too, part of that master planning process, usually there's a survey done as well. So there's opportunity for us, and that kind of launches the process. And that cannot just be neighbors, that may be, because we were building regional trails, and so what I always kind of talk about, one of the challenges of my position is trying to build regional facilities but address neighborhood impacts. So you're building facilities for the entire community, but you're trying to address, and of course you want to be a good neighbor. And so a lot of times it comes down to that in many ways of what we do. I think we do a pretty good job with that. And do we please absolutely everyone and solve every problem? We do not. But we do the best we can to address the majority of those.
Okay, if I may ask a quick follow-up. So if I wanted to, as a volunteer at Kono, if I wanted to remain aware of upcoming master plan adjustments or amendments or whatever, then is there a broadcast that you do? I mean, in other words, if I wasn't in one of those adjacent neighborhoods, but I was in an organization that was interested in the topic, is there some sort of broadcast or website or whatever?
Yeah, I should clarify too that we have really 2 types of master plans. We have a global master plan for the entire park system, which was just updated back in 2013, and that addresses all trails, all parks within the entire system. And that was about a year-long process that we went through. I know Karen updated hers as well not that long ago. And then we have individual park master plans as well. Maybe a park, right now we're updating the Whitefield Community Park, we just did Fountain Creek Regional Park. So we have individuals, and then we have the global master plan. Both of those, we advertise heavily in the media when we have those events, so I'd encourage you to watch for that. And I believe we reach out to Kono as well, and if we don't, we need to certainly do that, so you can help us spread the word as well. And then we also do, finally, direct mailings out to those neighbors and neighborhood organizations in the area as well.
I was impressed by your story about Rainbow Falls, and it made me remember that back, I think around 2008, when we had a huge economic downturn, there was a federal plan for cities, which Colorado Springs declined to participate in, but Chicago did. And Mayor Daley used that federal money to hire the homeless and train them in horticulture. And so they still have a program where they train homeless in horticulture, and they maintain their 1,700 miles of landscape medians, their huge downtown pots of native plants, and Millennial Park. And a lot of them then are retained also in the winter to do snow and ice removal. It's apparently been an incredibly successful plan. A lot of these people have gone on to careers in the green industry. And I'm wondering if either of you have ever thought about the potential, especially since we have so many urban campers living in our parks, of doing something similar.
Please.
Not in terms of how we thought through that particular scenario. We have been working very closely with our different homeless outreach folks within the community to try and pull resources and make some determinations on some things that can be helpful in ending homelessness. I know Amy Cox within our community Development Group. She's been working very diligently on that with the continuum of care plan and such, but we have not specifically reached out in terms of an employment situation in that regards, but it's definitely something to look into a little bit further, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Judith.
Well, it's been very successful. It just seems to be it's a logical model.
Have you contacted anyone in the Continuum of Care organization?
I go to a lot of those meetings.
Have you mentioned it to them?
It's beyond where they're thinking right now.
Unfortunately, that's true. Yeah.
Can you talk about the funding a little bit again, if you could, please? In Chicago, they were using federal funds for it? or-
I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I can't remember. There was a name for that program. It was a special program because of the economic downturn.
Okay.
Colorado Springs, being Colorado Springs, said, we're not gonna take federal money, just we all taxpayers have to pay for that. But Chicago did. And Mayor Daley, the son, the second Mayor Daley, really made a reputation for himself on greening the city. They have over 150 rooftop gardens. They have like 500 community gardens. It's been wildly successful. And as someone who's naturally lazy, I always think, why don't we look at successful models elsewhere? And that's a very, very successful model.
Yeah.
There was a
Done
similar
amazing things there.
program about 2 or 3 years ago in Albuquerque as well from the city.
And the county's been exploring, it's called vertical gardening, and we've looked at a model in Wyoming, and it was built next to a county facility, or actually I think it was a city facility in that particular place, but it was a layered gardening, and you can do it a variety of ways, and you have an apartment with vertical gardening inside your apartment itself, but also major gardening as well, and where they talk about food deserts, where there's not enough food in a particular area because there's lack of grocery stores, whatever, they do the vertical gardening. So we're taking a look at that. We're kind of interested in that concept, which kind of goes along there, but one of the thought processes was how do we maintain it? Maybe that's an opportunity.
I just did a little quick Google, and all I'm finding about that, not all, there's a lot on it, but it's particularly Chicago's Pacific Garden Mission seems to be doing
They
that.
have a separate division on that.
Well, first I have to say I love our park system. I love what you all do. And we go to the county fair and we take advantage of the trails and the sports and all kinds of good stuff. So thank you very much. I was picked up on when you said that you work with developers when in placing parks. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct.
And I live close to where Current Incorporated is right now, and it's going to become something else probably. And the plan shows that it says that the parking lot will remain, but in reality, if you talk to the city planner, it's going to become multi-family dwellings. And so I said to him, that would be a perfect place for a park, because it's almost at the confluence of the Pikes Peak Greenway, the Cottonwood Creek Trail, and the Santa Fe Trail. And there is no park right there with access to the Cottonwood Creek and that sort of thing. So what would it take for that to become a park?
For it to be.
Your donation of
Yeah.
How many millions do you need? My entire retirement fund?
And more.
Yeah. Well, a couple things in relation to that. We are working with that developer on the trail system in that area and making some better connections through there.
Good.
So there's some good news on that front as far as making that and being able to head down Cottonwood, the Cottonwood Trail there. As well as we're working on the academy portion, so going up and there'll be
Yes,
some good
right now
connections.
it's closed between Vincent and
Right,
Academy.
right, so that piece going up is underway, and they're doing the planning and such, and that, thanks to our Public Works Department, we were able to help partner with that and move that project forward. As far as park related, depending on what they do develop, if there's a certain amount of dwellings will trigger a certain amount of acreage that has to either be dedicated or a fee in lieu for park purposes. So if they have land that they choose to dedicate based on the number of dwellings and things that they'll be putting in place, will determine how much acreage would need to be set aside for the park. And so if they have that ability within the property, a lot of times they'll do that, and that'll become either a neighborhood park or a community park. You'll see that in many different places around our community as a whole. And then also if they choose a fee in lieu, then those dollars go into our parkland dedication ordinance, which allows us to either purchase land for parks and or develop new facilities within, and we try to do things within those areas if possible, but if not throughout the city operations. So you've seen a lot of PLDO money right now currently is going into Venetia Community Park, which is on the north end of town, which has been about 20 years in the making. So when they were saying about a lot of money, yes, it may take that. So that community park is well underway and should hopefully be open by the springtime. And so we're really excited about that. But we utilize resources. We used a lot of PLDO money into Memorial Park, so down around the downtown area. We've done the skate park facilities in there, tennis and handball facilities, and other improvements such as those. So those are some of the ways that we can accomplish that. We usually work with the developer on the overall master plan. Their master plans are required to go to our Parks Board, and they go through that approval process. So anything park related would go through them for approval and determination. That would then be part of the overall plan for that development.
So right now, you said, I can't remember the terms, you said residences or what?
Yeah, depending on the density of residences and such will determine what acreage is necessary for them to
So
set
how about
aside.
if there, at least more than half of it is devoted to businesses?
Well, businesses are not part of that equation. But you will have that trail connection, that piece of it. We've been, like I said, Chris Lieber in our office with our Parks Development manager, he's been working with them on some property layouts to be able to engage that trail system even better, so, within the current neighborhood.
So you're just saying I have no power?
No, I did not say that. No, I did not say that in terms of that.
If I were rich, I would.
Yeah, well, the other thing is if you talk to the developer, a lot of times those are the ways that things get done within the neighborhood is if they talk with the developer and there's an opportunity to maybe set aside acreage if possible. And those are some of the ways those get done through those grassroots advocacy efforts in that regard as far as the new development occurs.
Thank you.
If I could follow up, please, to that. We're talking about the current building that's on Woodman, just east of I-25 and that
Yes, sir.
Nissan dealer?
That's what she's talking about, yes, sir.
Okay, it was my understanding that that building was going to be developed and subdivided and sold to various business entities. Am I incorrect there?
That's not
There's one developer, it's called
Yeah.
Crest of Woodman, and what his vision is that the current incorporated warehouses would stay and some business would make good use of them, and then the rest of the land he would attract a grocery store, various restaurants, various businesses, maybe a big box store, maybe office supply stores, or office buildings, I'm sorry. And then right now, the plan says that the parking lot remains, and that's what's up against the creek. But our city planner said ultimately, he envisions multifamily dwellings there.
Interesting.
So it's called Crest of Cottonwood. Yesterday was the last day to officially comment on it, but if you give me your contact information, I can give you the information of which city planner. Well, the city planner's called Mike Schultz, right?
Mike Schultz.
So Mike Schultz is the city planner that you might be able to dialogue with.
I'm just curious, because I have a client who is thinking he's going to move in there with his business.
I see. I want him to have a park instead.
It'd be great for his employees at lunchtime.
Yeah. So Karen, I'm sorry I missed your presentation, and I don't know if you talked about the trees or not, but I'm really concerned because a lot of people don't realize that when Colorado Springs was founded in 1871, it was part of, on maps, it was part of the Great American Desert, which it had been since 1806 when Pike came through here. And it was because of the vision of Palmer that we have trees and have a city here. He recognized the need for trees and for water. When I was on Park Board, and we verified that in the book on the history of Colorado Springs parks, there were 4 separate tree fund groups, 4. And I understand today, but I talked with somebody in the Parks Department, you might not have known, that there isn't a separate street tree fund for replacing street trees. And I'm concerned because I live in an older neighborhood and where there are huge, beautiful street trees, there are a lot of street tree vacancies. And then a lot of other places I see that there's some maintenance that could be done on some trees. So I'm wondering, is that true? Do we not have a street tree fund? If not, why not? Is there some way that we can do as citizens? That's part of the character of Colorado Springs, aside from ecological services like erosion control and stormwater management and reducing the urban heat island effect that trees perform. So what are we doing to replace that street tree fund?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting that Judith chose this picture. We just actually did several presentations to council, and Susan might appreciate this conversation. But our city forester, one staff back would tell you Colorado Springs is trying to go back to this because as you know, with droughts and issues, it's very challenging to water, and we continue to have to water at a deficit because with limited funding available within our water budget. We'll be entering this year, so some good news to what Judith is bringing forward is the fact that this is the first year we've actually watered at the minimum level of requirement. So in other words, the state of Colorado says you should water at X amount, this range, right? And so this is the first year we've been able to. We have been watering at a deficit for many, many years, back since 2008. So those trees that Judith is talking about are showing those signs significantly. And unfortunately with trees, by the time you see it, it's too late. And so we're sitting with a little over 1,000 dead, dying, or dangerous back-ordered work orders within our system. It was part of our budget presentation we did just last week. That we need significant resources to keep up with those that need to be removed, and there is no funding currently, Judith. There has not been a street tree fund in many years. It was determined, I think at some point in time, that there was too much money in it, and so we didn't need to do it anymore. Sound familiar? And so now there's no money. What?
Not really.
No, not really.
Too much money, I thought.
Yeah, too much money. Evidently, there was too much money in there, and not able to. We shouldn't collect anymore. And so, really, we get about $10,000 annually from folks that run over vegetation, knock down trees through traffic accidents and such. And we utilize that to replace some trees. We work with our different partners, like the Downtown Partnership helped us replace some trees in downtown. And we've worked with neighborhoods and such to do some community tree plantings when appropriate. Great example is we did Arbor Day out at Mountain Shadows after the fire. And we're able to plant, due to some grant money that we received, over 200 additional trees in that neighborhood. So that is exactly the issue that's been on the table for quite some time, Judith, you brought forward in terms of trying to get the resource in the water. We have been watering barely, again in a deficit, for turf, not for trees. And so that's what you're seeing in especially those historic medians, the condition of those trees are due to that situation. So we are very fortunate that this past year we've been able to water at that minimum level instead of at that deficit. So we're pleased with that. We're seeing some good recovery in our turf. We're seeing some good recovery in some of the younger trees, but some of our older trees are really in dire situations.
If I could just talk about trees for a second as well too. About half of the county park system is classified as forested area, so about 4,000 acres. And thankfully for the Park Advisory Board and the Board of County Commissioners, we're beginning to build a fund to be able to help maintain those forests, which haven't been done for a number of years. And the good news too is the state has a funding program as well. They'll match dollar for dollar. We've been fortunate to receive 4 of those grants. So we've been investing back into forest management, also fire mitigation as well. They kind of go hand in hand. But our first effort is to make a healthy forest. And so we've been doing a lot of work in Fox Run, if you've been up in that area, but we're also beginning to go over now into Black Forest and the Pine Reeds as well too. So if you live in a forested area, please always be thinking fire mitigation, but also the health of the forest as well. We got to the point where we had 1,000 trees in an acre. That's way, way too many. And so when you see us doing that thinning, we've heard some people be concerned about taking down healthy trees. Well, they won't be healthy for long if we continue that kind of growth in that size area. And so we're doing a lot of work in that area, and then the commissioners are committed to a 5-year budget plan to grow it to $200,000 a year. Hopefully we match that with another $200,000 a year. If we're starting to make a $400,000 investment into our forests, I think that'll be quite helpful for not only our forests, but also fire mitigation as well.
And if I can, Tim, I want to just follow on. I went for a walk in Fox Run on Sunday, and we tried to go before. Didn't bring our snowshoes during the appropriate time. But anyway, what was particularly impressive to me was the number of Ute Indian prayer trees that are identified there. If you haven't been, you really should go. Just wander around the youths of 100 years ago or more have reshaped these trees into incredible sorts of symbols, I guess. But anyway, thank you for doing that. I wanted to raise.
Before you leave that, could I just talk
Sure.
about, the former Sheriff John Anderson is an expert on youth prayer trees, and so we've identified those in all of the Black Forest parks, and so
Right.
they're quite prevalent up there, more than I had ever imagined.
Yeah.
And so if you do get a chance to go up and take a look, that would be great.
But I wanted to turn your attention for a minute to going back to the Ute Pass Trail, because the last I talked to a commissioner about that, there was apparently concern on the part of residents along the trail that people would use the trail to steal large screen TVs and things like that. It just seemed a little amusing to me. I wondered if you could share any more about that development.
Yeah, we actually, the Ute Pass Regional Trail and Ring the Peak was involved in the Governor's 16 and 16. That was identifying gaps within trail systems across the state of Colorado, and so we're very pleased to be named within that. The Governor was just with us a couple of weeks ago in Ute Pass to talk about that very thing, and so we appreciate his support for it as well too. Right now, we've got a 5-mile gap that we're trying to fill within Ute Pass. So we're coming up from Manitou Springs to Longs Ranch Road, if you're familiar with that area. Then we kind of stop. We don't go to Cascade Street Park. Then we pick it back up again as we head up towards Teller County as well. But globally, and Karen has seen this as well too, is there's always going to be some concern about trail systems, bringing new people into areas if you've not had a trail there before. And so we appreciate that. What I respond to is, I rarely get phone calls about people going off trail or abusing private property or theft, as Dave was talking about as well. That's very rare. You know, I've been here 13 years, and a handful maybe. You know, and so most of our trail people really respect the trail, stay on the trail, appreciate the trail. And many times they're members of friends groups that help clean up the trail. And so it's somewhat unlikely that they're going to think, oh, well, let's go check out this private property. I think most people understand that they need to stay on the trail as they go through. What I've seen is the flip side of it. You know, with the new Santa Fe Regional Trail, when it was closed to the Air Force Academy, I received many, many more phone calls than constructing a trail when you close a trail that's existing. And so to me, that says people greatly appreciate them. Once they're constructed, they understand that, you know, maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be. But, you know, matter of fact, it's kind of cool to have a trail right there. Usually a lot of that goes away. But fear of the unknown initially is a challenge. And certainly as we're going through our fire issues on Ute Pass, which everybody appreciates, you know, we understand that, and there was some concern about people smoking on the trail and potentially lighting a fire. My experience on trails is fairly rare. Many people are out smoking, going up and down trails, but it could happen, so we understand that as well. So we try to address those, but like using groups like Kono as well to help us as we go through that process. And sometimes it's better for someone like Dave to come than me, you know, where they see me a lot, and government official and all of that. So encourage all of you to come out as well to those neighborhood meetings. And I did want to just touch on one thing too, the development side that Karen was talking about earlier. Please be involved in that. If you have a development going on next to you, I really encourage you to stay involved in that process. You know, we have guidelines, mandatory guidelines that say if we have a trail design going through, you have to give us a trail easement whether you want to or not. It's, you know, it's going to connect a trail system. And there's open space requirements as well. But there's a lot of negotiation that can go on too. And so as you see developments come through, just stay involved in that. Normally there's going to be community meetings involved, or you can at least visit with the planners or the park officials, because you can make some nice adjustments to those developments that really are beneficial for everybody. But rather than just us visiting with the developer, it's great to have those neighbors involved too.
I want to go back real quick if I could, and we'll go back to questions in terms of what Tim mentioned as far as the forest management. Another collaborative effort that the city and the county, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, the Broadmoor, Cheyenne Mountain State Park, and the U.S. Forest Service all were engaged in addressing the tussock moth and the spruce budworm up in Cheyenne Canyon area, and also our Blodgett Peak area. And so last spring we were able to hopefully mitigate most of what we think the species of the tussock moth. We'll wait till spring to have some full results on both tussock and spruce budworm, but there was a significant commitment from City Council, from the mayor, in terms of putting those dollars aside so that we could do that. We also continue, just like Tim mentioned, with acquiring grants from the state forest. We're working on There's a grant going in for Stratton, for U Valley, and then also working with the fire department on a couple other larger ones as well in the areas with the urban interface. So we continue to work on that piece of it. We've been able to really get grant money. If we could find some sources, Judith, for street trees, we'd be in good shape and be able to help with that. So.
Coming back to looking at examples, one of the things that I researched is a lot of communities have, and I'll leave it up to Dave to find alternative terminology, but they have what you could call a tree tax, but you wouldn't want to call here.
Right.
And a lot of communities have it, a lot of them in Colorado, in Ohio, for example. And what it is it's like 5 cents per foot of frontage. So in my house, when I lived in the old North End, I had a 50-foot frontage. So I would have paid $2.50 a year into a street tree fund that would have paid for replacement and maintenance and whatnot. It's a minimal cost for homeowners and property owners, but it puts a guaranteed fund there. And my understanding is since long ago when I was on park board, there have been many years when there's been minimal money at all for forestry.
Correct.
And it seems really odd that we have no active Friends of Trees group in Colorado Springs. Maybe Conrad could take that on.
Well, since you mentioned that, one thing that I would like to talk with you both about is the idea of Kono perhaps helping to coordinate cross neighborhood tree plantings. I don't know that we can do exactly what Judith is suggesting, but I'm thinking that we could help neighborhoods replicate what the Old North End and some others do by planting trees in the parkways between the sidewalks and the street, and helping them reduce that cost. If we were to organize that across the larger community, we could probably get a much better rate for.
It's a great Arbor Day event, absolutely.
Well, let's talk more then.
Absolutely. I think she had a question.
I know you talked about what you're able to do because of volunteers and friends groups. So I was wondering what type of volunteer recognition, and this is specific to my neighborhood because I know every Sunday and Monday morning I go out and I live next to a very large, beautiful park, thank you, Quail Lake, and someone has taken and collected all the trash and put it at the trash cans, and it happens every week. And I just don't know how to recognize this person, who they are, but if you do have a volunteer recognition program, I'd like to put someone in for that.
Absolutely, send me their name, and we do so annually, usually in April time period, and we recognize outstanding volunteer groups and such, and then a lot of times when we hear about folks that are doing special things in the community, we'll send a special token out to them as well.
And maybe
Let them
larger
know.
trash cans too. 'Cause
Yes. That'd be great.
We also volunteer the year program as well too, so we appreciate if you're aware of that. One thing that we've done too, which has been really cool, is we've had a Partners in the Park program where we have businesses, organizations, and individuals donate $5,000 a year to support their favorite park. And we have 6 of those this year, which we greatly appreciate. That's funneled right back into maintaining the park itself. So if you know of anyone that would like to sponsor one of the county parks that's not already sponsored, we're very excited about that, so please send them our way.
Zach?
I'm curious, just want to go quickly back to water use for a second. I'm curious about, within the park system itself, what is it that's the biggest water strain for you? I mean, are there turf areas that could go back to native grasses? I know that that can be a very contentious thing in some ways of like aesthetic sensibility, but I'm just curious about, has there been a bit more of a shift towards native grasses for certain areas, such that you could offset, I don't know, maybe, I would love to see in the future, for example, in some of, maybe in the Shooks Run area, edible forests, these are things that are really interesting to myself personally, but
Or even edible parks.
or edible parks, etc. And
Judith and her props.
yeah, Judith brought them all. But so I'm just curious about that, about what really takes in the most water. Has there been more of a push towards xeriscaping or indigenous grasses at all? And then I have a second quick question, which is, in the next 5 years, what do you see as being the 3 main things that could get more funding for the parks? Does it mean that we need to, Tabor, we need to get rid of it? I'm just going to say that. I personally feel that way, but I'm just curious of what you would see in those sort of 2 questions.
Okay, so let me take care of your first question. Yes, we have made significant strides over the last several years in our opportunity to reduce what we consider our water footprint. So the amount of water that we're putting on the turf, the types of turfs we have, the type of areas in which, and so the biggest area that needs the water the most is usually our athletic facilities. So you've got youth out there playing. You have to keep that turf in good condition so it's safe for them to play, for the adults that play out there and such. And so one of the things we've been working towards is artificial turf. And so like Skyview Sports Complex, I know Judith is cringing at me, but
You can make it out of recycled materials though.
Skyview Sports Complex, we were able to do 6 fields, which equated to $75,000 immediate reduction to our water bill. Just from one facility. It's 6 sports facilities that has given us actually doubled and tripled the amount of usage that can play out there because it is a artificial turf all the way through. So we've put football out there on baseball, you've got softball, you've got ultimate frisbee, you've got all kinds of different uses that can maximize those playing spaces. And because it's artificial turf, when the season starts sooner than later, nowadays the kids are playing and the adults are playing year round, we're able to remove snow from that surface as well, and it's a playable space. And so we've also seen that become an economic generator for us. We went from 6 tournaments a year to 44 tournaments in the following year after those turf were placed. So those are heads and beds, those are kids and parents. That's the one thing that our CVB will tell you in terms of recession proof is sports programs for kids. They become the vacations for those families, and we have a ton of them coming here to Colorado Springs, and we're real fortunate. We're getting ready next July 4th time period. We'll have the Sparkler softball tournament that's expanding beyond Denver down to our area. They've used up every field up in the Denver area, and they're coming down here as well. So we're seeing those kind of things. Also in terms of our neighborhood parks, we've got a lot of parks from way back in the day where it was, sprawling bluegrass. Well, bluegrass is a lot to water. And so we've looked at areas that make sense in terms of low traffic areas and such where we can convert that to native turf. That has, as you mentioned, raised some challenges. Some folks are not as excited about native turf as they are about bluegrass. And so that's been an education process, and we've worked very diligently on that. We've converted a lot of the parkway spaces. Like Dave said, in terms of trees, we've done trees and such in some areas, but in some areas where we had that little strip of grass where most of the water is really hitting the asphalt or the sidewalk, we've converted that into some other type of surface, whether it be a concrete type of concrete area that matches the curb, or some kind of decorative type of situation, and or tree grates with some permeable surface around that. So we've made tremendous strides. We've converted over, I think we're up to 120 acres total conversion. We're doing medians as well, converting those out of the bluegrass into native turf and or some other type of native plantings and such, so they take lower amounts of water. We've seen just in this past, between all of the efforts we've done over the last several years, just this last year, we expected to be needing $1 million to bridge our gap for what we thought we would need in water. And thanks to the tremendous work of all those park staff out there that are making those conversions and putting in technology into the systems that are out there, making the turf to native conversion and or other lower drought tolerant plants, we saved over $700,000 this year. So we are at a deficit, expecting a deficit of about $300,000 this year versus the $1 million we expected. So team's doing a phenomenal job, but it is an education process. It's some areas take better than others, more quickly than others, but we've seen some great success from that, and we're going to continue on in those efforts.
Just a quick comment on county parks. We attempt to develop about 20% of our park and leave the rest as open space. And of that, probably 10% is athletic type facilities as well. So we're relatively small footprint in regards to the overall park itself. And then most of our parks are on wells as well. Doesn't mean we don't need to conserve water even if it's on wells. Not as expensive as buying the water itself. But overall, I think as county park planners over the years have done a pretty nice job of thinking through that and how can we minimize the amount of bluegrass athletic fields that we have while still trying to meet that need, obviously, as well too. And so overall we're pleased with that, but whenever we're building any new parks, we're always focusing on that. we'd like to do more artificial turf as well, but the upfront expense is difficult for us to be able to do. So Falcon Regional Park, there was some discussion that it just our most recently new regional park that's open. We didn't do artificial turf there for the first 2 fields. We may do that in future fields if we can find a funding source.
Are you using, expanding the use of gray water, recycling water?
We have non-potable at Bear Creek where we do buy water, and so that's been very helpful for us, saved us quite a bit of money in that particular area. We only have 2 other parks that we buy water for, the other 2 we do not, but Bear Creek we do. We've spent quite a bit of money bringing that non-potable in as well, but over the years it certainly has paid off.
All right, but are you gonna use it, expand the use of that?
At Bear Creek, we're already using it for the entire park itself, any place that we water, so it's done at this point. The other 2, I don't know if we have the ability to use non-pot, like in Widefield, I'm not sure, we can look into that and see. But Falcon, I don't believe that was a possibility, at least at this point.
We've utilized non-pot anywhere where it's accessible. That's been a huge water saver for us as well. And Zach, is it? I want to go back to your second part of your question. You asked about funding. And that's a great question. There's a lot of folks talking about funding right now. There's a tremendous amount of stakeholders that have been working very diligently with both the city and the county in terms of looking at some ballot initiatives, opportunities in the future, looking at what makes sense in terms of going forward, and how to do what's necessary to create a sustainable funding center for our park system. And they'd love to do something that's both city and county. And I know they're going to continue to work on that and look towards some additional polling in November after the federal elections are completed. So if you get one of those calls, it will be a person, not a robocall. So I encourage you, the Trust for Public Lands is the one who's overseeing that project for both the city and county to garner information and to see what the temperature is out in the community. So if you get that call, I encourage you to answer it and share your information, your feedback, and your thoughts in regards to that.
Would it be on the ballot for next year then, or would it?
Depending on the results of the survey and such, the polling that'll occur, that'll be something that'll have to be determined through city council, mayor's office, and those community stakeholders as to what they're willing to put forward, if they're willing to put something forward.
Okay.
I have a question about developers in, like, say, Ivy Wild, which is what I'm talking about. We have Sam Guadagnoli doing a lot of development down there, and he took a swath of houses out and took all the trees out with it. Are there any ordinance against that, like leaving some mature trees when developers come into these infill areas? Just because I have a concern about trees as well. I'm just wondering how, it's gonna look strange if he takes them all out, right? I just wonder if there's anything.
Not currently in terms of our overall ordinances and such that require, there is what you have to put back in and the amount of buffer and such, but depending on the property. Yeah, that's challenging. It's nice when you can keep some of those mature trees, but not knowing what he's trying to figure out what his plan is, it may have made more sense, unfortunately.
But if they take street trees, they're liable for those, aren't they?
Yeah, the street trees are a different story.
Yeah,
They'd have to go
because-
through us.
Because they took 2.5 blocks of street trees out in front of Ivy Well, and I heard from the city planner that the person who did that is now is gonna have to pay $70,000.
Yeah, if it's the street trees, that's a different story, but his overall property itself, so.
Just out of curiosity, we talk about street trees.
In the parking strip, between the sidewalk and the street.
Okay, well, I live between Garden of the Gods and Film Office Centennial, and they're reconstructing that whole area. They're going to remove the median. They're cutting all of those trees. The people that live in that area have argued that they not do that. But I think it was a foregone conclusion even before they talked to the people that live there. I don't think anything actually can be done. Because for me and other people, my neighbors that live in that area, Holland Park, they're creating another short Powers, which is, to me, is gonna uglify the area, not beautify it. So it's as we move forward, when you look at beautifying the city, I see it as a kind of a tragedy.
It's tough. It is a very difficult situation. They're very costly to operate and maintain, unfortunately, between the hardscape, between snow removals, and then the lack of water and the cost of water that we would happen to address. So those issues compound that. And it's unfortunate because we love them. We love to have, especially our downtown historic ones. I mean, we've really been trying to work hard to bring those back and restore those to their former glory. I don't know that we'll ever meet Judith's requirement, but we're working towards it. And General Palmer's, I mean, that was why he created the first forestry division within our city.
People would have moved here if there hadn't been trees.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we just, unfortunately, we're in that kind of climate where they're struggling to go back to the former Cutler Hall days.
This question may be for Dave, but can questions like that be addressed to our city councilman in hopes of having some sort of ordinance that prevents the removal of
Well, I think
mature trees?
what Tim said about being involved in development wherever it occurs is a very good piece of advice, because I know that even Ray O'Sullivan, who's working with the Guacamole on that development, would be at least sensitive, maybe not responsive. I don't know that the particulars of the situation, but someone like O'Sullivan, who's doing that development, would be responsive to express concerns from neighbors. And the more neighbors you have expressing those concerns, the more the responsiveness you'll get. And of course, the city council, or in the case of the county commissioners, they're politicians. They are in office to pay attention to what people want. The more they hear of those things, the more attention they're going to pay. Generally speaking, there's always exceptions, but I think, and I'd be glad to talk with you more about the Guacamole situation. Maybe there's something still that we can do, because
I know they have 2 or 3 more lots that they're going to tear down those homes.
Well,
there's some trees in there that.
We recently applied but did not get a grant. And in the course of applying for that grant, we got both the Guacamolles and the Equity Group, the 2 major developers in that area, 2 of the 3 major developers in that area, to say we'd like to have people from the neighborhood involved in our conversation. So I think we could still take advantage of that commitment to see what else could be done. If you've got that sort of situation and you're not sure how to proceed, or you've tried contacting the developer and you haven't had much luck, you should give us a call, and we can help you work through what else is possible. But it's always a good idea to talk with the developer and to get more neighbors involved and to talk to your council member.
Yeah, I would encourage you to. I know with Tim's Parks Board meeting is in our Parks Board, they're well attended in terms of projects and things that are happening, and we usually have a pretty full house depending on the agenda, but all of the different community plans come through that, and there's a good opportunity. You're going to see that more than once with us as well, because they'll bring it just similar to City Council. They'll bring it from us a workshop presentation, so you can hear about the project, you can hear what's being proposed, and then come back when it's an actual action item. There's opportunities for public comment before the meeting. There's opportunities for public comment during those action items and even presentations now. So I encourage y'all to take advantage of those particular projects. Again, they would be related to park stuff. There are other ones that are tied to the Planning Commission directly within the city's aspect of it that I encourage you maybe to dial in with that. But Kono's a great resource to really help you navigate that system, and if Dave doesn't know exactly how to go about it, he'll know the right people to at least help you get there. So
Or I know the right people to tell me who the right
exactly
people are.
right, exactly. So
Robert,
and that's with anything.
I think you had a question, Robert.
Yeah, from Ms. Palace, 2 questions about SIMDs. The first question is, can you give a little bit of a tutorial about how the very curious stretches of street border get addressed? And the example I'm thinking of is Norwood SIMD, where you'd think that you would imagine perhaps that the SIMD would take care of the street to fence for the entire stretch of Rangewood, for example, but it doesn't. There's gaps. So the first question, can you give me an explanation of how that happens? And then number two is, there's parts of the city's map, Springs View and City View, that reflect these SIMDs as being responsible for an entire swath of area, but it seems like in practice, it's only, your role is exclusively limited to, medians and edges of streets. So the second part of the question then is to confirm or correct that.
Okay, well, what Robert is speaking about is the special improvement maintenance districts, and we have 7 of them throughout the city. Some are very, very large, like the Westwood one he mentioned, and Briargate. Some are very small, like Flat Avenue and Old Colorado City. And so we oversee those operations. We do the typical, what I would consider median right-of-way frontage type of work. What Robert brought up is actually a project that we're working on throughout the city with our public works and also our code enforcement department. There's a lot of street frontage that's not maintained by the city that ends up in either double frontage lots for neighbors and neighborhoods, may be overseen by an HOA, may have a developer responsibility on that same stretch of property. And it's interesting that he brought up the Norwood one. We just did a presentation yesterday to our IT. One of the things we want to do is put an information layer together about each of those medians throughout the entire city. So as a citizen, as well as a city staff person, you could go online, you could put your information in, and that would pop up and tell you whose responsibility it is. Right now, that's Kurt Schroeder. You call Kurt, Kurt pulls it up, he figures it out and tells you where it is. And we'd love to get a little few of hours of Kurt's back in terms of that. And so we're trying to put together an IT solution for that will help not only our residents but also internal staff, because their responsibilities within those areas that are stormwater or streets division, there's responsibilities that are PPRTA, again those HOAs that I mentioned, developers' responsibilities, the SIMD's responsibilities, and city responsibilities just in terms of our regular native right-of-ways and such. And so it's convoluted and complicated, but we're trying to come up with a tool, a technology tool that will help folks be able to tell that. How that happens, Robert, that's a really good question. In terms of what gets structured as part of the SIMD, that Special Improvement Maintenance District, that is done and set up. They each have their own board, so it's a community-driven board overseen by City Council, and they essentially collect a tax in that particular area that pays for certain properties within those boundaries. It's not a perfect system, so it's, even though the boundary may be this, it doesn't have all of the responsibilities of every piece of frontage, right-of-way, and such. Another good example of some things that transition over time to, where you have businesses or developers as part of their development requirements are to be responsible for, a good example is the University Village area, that shopping area. That shopping center is responsible for the maintenance of those medians. An example that's probably near and dear to Tim's heart, because you don't see it every day, but when you're down at the County Services Center, the people who owned those buildings and businesses back in the day were responsible for Garden of the Gods. Well, Garden of the Gods doesn't look too great, does it? Because those businesses have left, and that's been in transition. And so you've got those kind of challenges, and I think that's kind of how that happens over time, Robert. When you have new developments come into, they may take over a certain portion of the area, but not the full area, and so the folks inside that circle may pay, but the folks outside don't. And so there's some differences of level of service, unfortunately, with that.
I think we have time for maybe just a couple other questions, and you've been waiting for a while, so.
I have a question about pet waste. So it's a big issue for watershed health overall, and I know you each kind of have programs that you're working on. Curious the status of those, enforcement, if you're collaboratively working or if you consider that.
Gonna go?
All right.
Oh, thanks. We encourage, you have more, I have more pet waste now. We encourage everyone to pick up after their pets. That is our motto and such out there, and we really want folks to do that. We have been working with a program called Bark Rangers, so if you have any critters, four-legged critters that you take out into our park system and want to be involved in that, it's an education process where we share information for folks on the importance of keeping dogs on leash, importance of picking up after your pet, so that we address those watershed issues and such, and or just the overall look and smell, unfortunately, of our facilities. And other than that, we have a contract with the Humane Society who assists us with the enforcement portion of it. It's not a perfect system, they're very understaffed, but Joe and his team do a really good job for us when they can. We try and target different areas for off-leash, waste removal, those kind of things when they're out and about, just to help us with that education. We encourage folks to, do the right thing for their four-legged critters, as well as themselves when they're in our park system between trash and pet waste. So, Allison, I know that's not the answer you're looking for in terms of, yes, we're well on our way and things are in good shape, but we still have a lot of work to do, but we just, again, try to encourage folks to be responsible out in the parks.
So for us, our most popular facility is our Bear Creek Dog Park. With 100,000 people a year that come through there, it's next to a creek.
It's next to a creek.
It is,
So-
yeah. And so we do our very best to have people pick up after themselves, and I think it's this weekend, we have Ghouls and Stools coming up. Which we have private volunteers that come in and help pick up the people that didn't pick up before. But I think we do a pretty good job with that overall at Bear Creek Dog Park, but it's a challenge. We get the creek coming through, and by the way, the dogs love the creek.
Yes, they do.
And so we need to keep a close eye on that. We do 2 cleanups here, one in the spring and one in the fall.
I will say, Julia, you're gonna have the last question. I thought you guys have done a remarkable job in making a difference with the goats and the dog interaction.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well done,
Of our
Tim.
goats,
Well
yes.
done.
Yes. Congratulations on improving that, that's
Yeah.
a,
The Bark Rangers you mentioned, is that something online that people can access, that information?
You can access the information, and then Annette Proctor works with some folks that come in and we do a training for them, and they get their little bandanas so they're identifiable, and we give you some tools and some information that you can hand out and share with people as well.
So
So
they become the poop police or something?
they become really more of an education. They're already out in the parks walking their dogs and such, and so we encourage them to share information. If you see somebody without a leash, they'll share. We get a donation of leashes, so we share those. And then just general information about why it's important, regarding the watershed, regarding keeping your dog on leash in terms of what happens to the wildlife and such, so.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to access that
Okay.
information.
Mhm.
My last question is, I walk my dog, and sometimes I can't find a trash can. Why is that?
Or they're
Like-
full.
Or like Cheyenne Canyon,
Mhm.
not a trash can to be found. So people leave things because they can't find anywhere to put it. Is
We
there
ask you
a
to
reason
pack
for
in
that?
and pack out, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and what we find with a lot of those that are out at the front, they become full because folks will pull up to them. And I could give you a great example is Crystal Reservoir at Pikes Peak. And we had trash cans out there, and every day they were just full to the hilt and stuff blowing everywhere. The winds are kind of fun up there on the peak. We took that trash can away. It hasn't been missed. We haven't had a lick of trash anywhere because folks, what they were doing is they're pulling up with their car and they empty out everything, then their road trip from wherever they came to go to the peak into that trash can. And so that you're seeing that more and more as a tool for folks to pack out their trash with them, take it with them. In terms of Forest Service is going that direction. In fact, more and more departments are removing trash cans because of those issues, where folks are just unloading all kinds of trash and debris into our receptacles that are meant for our park users, right? So by removing those and asking them to pack it out, then they take it with them typically. And you may see, pieces here and there, but we actually reduced the significant amount of trash that we were having to deal with up on Crystal due to that, so.
I'll just make a comment that sounds an awful lot like the situation we face when we help people do neighborhood cleanups. Because one of the things that Sarah advises everyone is, don't put that dumpster where everybody in the world can see it, because it'll be full in 15 minutes. If you save it or put it someplace else, then the neighbors can use it for doing what they need to. Thank you all, you both very much.